Ngeba Sojola here. Now, there are two Central African countries who've been having territorial disputes over a number of islands that are particularly found in the Atlantic Oceans. These islands cover a land area of about 30 hectares, and there's about three islands that are in this territorial dispute. Now, the name of the islands are the main island is known as Mbanie, right? The second island is known as the Conga, right? And the third island is known as the Cocotiers, right? Or the Cocotieros. Now, these two Central African countries are basically Equatorial Guinea and Gabon. Now, in 1970, Gabon put in efforts to alter the border after the Spanish colonizer actually withdrew from the area. Now, this was done because there were few Spanish companies in the early 70s who thought that these particular three islands in the Atlantic, right, had a potential to host oil reserves and gas reserves. Now, in 1972, Gabon went to a point where they invaded these islands and basically kicked out the army or the soldiers that belonged to Equatorial Guinea. And in 1974, Gabon went to a point to produce something called the Bata Convention or the Bata Agreement, right? Which officially gave these islands over to Gabon. Now, Equatorial Guinea basically uses an argument that is based on the convention or the agreement which was signed by the two colonial powers which controlled the area, particularly in Central Africa, right? These two colonial players were Spain and France, right? Which the convention or agreement was signed between these two colonial powers roundabout in 1900. Now, this territorial dispute over these three islands, right, on the Atlantic Ocean, basically died down, right, until about the early 2000s when there were companies, oil companies and gas companies, which actually stated the huge potential that the that these three islands actually have in terms of oil and gas reserves. Now, the dispute for this territory of these islands increased and heated up to a point where the UN actually got involved and played a mediating role between Equatorial Guinea and Gabon, right? And in 2016, the two Central African countries, Equatorial Guinea and Gabon, came to an agreement and signed an agreement that they will take this issue of the territorial dispute to the Hague in Netherlands, right? And basically use world courts to solve the issue. So currently, the issue is in The Hague, particularly the ICJ, right? The International Court of Justice, and it is basically being dealt with by The Hague. To be specific, the International Court of Justice. So, this territorial dispute between Equatorial Guinea and Gabon is basically at The Hague, as I've mentioned, and a binding legal and final judgment will be released in 2025, Currently, we're in 2024. Now, this approach taken by the UN and Equatorial Guinea and Gabon, right, on this territorial dispute is quite refreshing because it really didn't involve any guns, wars, or soldiers, right? They opted to use the legal system that the Hague has to offer, and this is quite a refreshing approach to the matter. Yes, the issue might be that why are African countries actually using international um, institutions, particular legal institutions, to actually solve this? We could have actually solved this using African institutions, but I think the AU is not a strong enough institution or the legal system that has been established in Africa. So this is a, what can I say? This is a uh, 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 now this basically just shows the need for Africa to strengthen its institutions so that they can be able to settle various disputes, be it disputes of territory or disputes between two warring tribal groups, right? Or two warring countries in any issue. So Africa must step up their game, basically.